Yo, what's good, Michigan? M3 in the building. It's time to get live. BlueTube calling show, we about to dive. Wolverines in the house, let me hear that pride. Callers on the line, don't you ever hide. Phone lines burning, energy surging through. Hand Arbor passion running deep and true. Maize and blue spirit, that's what we pursue. M3 got the mic, bringing heat for you. Hit those digits, make that connection. Every voice matters in this Wolverine reflection. BlueTube family, this our resurrection. Call in now, share that Michigan affection. Let's go. Let's go.
Good evening, good people. It is I, the Maze Mad Man. It's been a minute since we were one-on-one like this. Shout out to everybody who was here, all 12 of you. By the way, if you're here, like, share this with your friends and family on social media. If you're on mobile, of course, hype this video. That said, we got some things to talk about. We're going to talk about them. I saw Tree Dog and the rest of them. By the way, this live was supposed to happen about an hour ago. That's my fault. I was on CP time. I did have to, do fatherly things. Let's say that. So that's what took me. That's what the delay was. But nonetheless, we are here now, and we are ready to talk about Ohio State's involvement with the Epstein files, along with a lot more. Fanatics brand clock on the way. Shout out to Blue Wolverine. That's good. My guy Ron Embry is here. Johnny Olden Jr. is here. He actually texted me and said, hey, you got a live that's scheduled for 6. Shout out to JOJ, who touched on this topic a little earlier. Let's get right to it. OSU and their refusal to cut ties with Les Wexner and Epstein. He took it a step further because there are certain, OSU podcasts who want to talk about Sharon Morris these many months later, and not the skeletons in their own closet. And I think, it's obviously hypocritical. Shout out to my guy DK. Hit that like button on your way in. Shout out to Dexter Green, who's a member. You should become a member. That said, it's a bit hypocritical of them to talk Michigan and the skeletons in Michigan's closet like Sharon Moore, when honestly, and let's be real, what Sharon Moore did was deplorable. Yes, what Sharon Moore did, he shouldn't be and won't be excused for, at least not on this channel. But that said, it's certainly not to the level of what's going on with, or what's been accused of Les Wexner and Ohio State's then refusal to remove his name from some of their, buildings around campus. Which, by the way, we're going to talk about. I'm going to drop this link in here for anybody who wants to come up too, because it has been a while. And I know that people have missed the show and definitely want to share their thoughts. If I could I forget how to do these things now. This is crazy. Invite guests. There you go. All right. But anyway, one of the more important things about this is that he was recently interviewed, I guess, by actually, I don't know how recent it was, but he was interviewed by a panel of people. He had his lawyer present. He said some very interesting things, that I'm sure a bunch of the conspiracy theorists will have fun with. But more importantly, what we know is that Jeffrey Epstein had access to Les Wexner's money, and Les Wexner told a story basically about how Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't be able to do what Jeffrey Epstein did and is accused of, had it not been for people like Wexner and other wealthy instrumental figures in allowing and basically funding what he was doing, islands, planes, all of these things. Top tier debauchery and evil things being done to children, no less. Shout out to how you say this, Squasley. He said OSU is the devil. That's a fact. That's a vile, disgusting cesspool in Columbus, no doubt about it. But what I also thought was interesting is that OSU had a chance to get in front of this a long time ago and remove Wexner's name from certain buildings and kind of distance themselves from this whole thing, and they refused to do that. They failed to do that. They even doubled down, saying we need, in order for something like that to happen, we need it has to be so egregious and proof beyond a reasonable doubt and things like that. And I'm pretty sure they have that now. And it still looks like nothing's moving. Shout out to Tree Dog, who says Les Wexner owns the New York penthouse Epstein lived in, and he is the one who owns the island. How about that? That's very damning, if you ask me. In addition to that, by the way, it was Wexner's OBGYN, right, that was doing the exams, if you will, of these young ladies who were definitely underage, and they're against their wills. At least that's what's been alleged. So it's a lot of things going on. Shout out to Blue Wolverine, who's been a member now for 14 months. You should become a member. He says no comment from OSU yet, right? No, that's a fact. I did see that the Ohio podcast was looking to do something. I got a text that they were going to be going live, I guess. But yeah, in terms of an official response from the university or anything, it doesn't look like any of that has been done. And they probably should be releasing statements quickly, because this is untoward. let me get back in here, hide this really quick. One of the things that was also very crazy to me is while he's at this deposition or whatever it is, his lawyer leans over to him, whispers into his ear, "I'll effing kill you if you answer any of these questions with more than 5 words again." Of course, he didn't mean to be hurt, but a hot mic picked it up, and that to me is very, very interesting. Talk to me in the comment section what you guys think about that. The lawyer threatening to physically kill Wexner if he answered any more questions in over 5 words. Now, granted, that could be taken as him more playful than anything, but again, he obviously doesn't want Wexner. I'm sorry, Les Wexner, to go into any more detail than is necessary. And I think that's what I took from it more than anything. Not that he'd actually go out here and murder Les behind the building, but there is a but here. Wexner named some very powerful people in the world that I'm not going to rename, but definitely do your research, or we might be able to do you one better here and get that video up. How about that? Let's do that, right? Because we can do that. Share this. So this is him actually saying
it was just regularly done.
Yeah, you can hear him clearly say, "I'll fucking kill you if you answer another question in more than 5 words." Okay. But it was what Les Wexner
For the
was saying
Rothschild
before
family
that
in France.
that was most interesting. And we're gonna get that here next because this was crazy.
Ellie de Rothschild
Here we go.
doing personal work for the Rothschild family in France. Well, specifically, I talked to Ellie de Rothschild, and so I mentioned that earlier. So he represented their whole family. So there have been a whole bunch of people. Most of them I never would have met, but I knew Ellie. He would say, like, I'm providing financial advice to the founders of Google. I'm providing financial advice to Jeff Bezos.
So you know, I'm not a professional or anything, but that sounds pretty crazy. You mentioned the Rothschilds for the Rothschilds have been like a boogeyman to a bunch of people, especially like I brought up earlier, conspiracy theorists and things like that. And then you talk about the founders of Google and stuff like that. These are very powerful people in terms of their money and in terms of their influence. You know, at least allegedly around the world. So him naming names is pretty crazy if you ask me. That said, shout out to my guy Corey G. He says that's one of the dirtiest families in the world, and there you have it. I didn't say that. This is Corey G's opinion. Although I am not against Corey G's opinion, but that is his opinion. What do you guys think about this? Talk to me again in the comment section. If you're in there, post a comment, whatever. But this is interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because again, I gotta tie this back to OSU because what we're getting into now is like more political realm, and I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not here to talk the politics of it or anything like that. What I am here to do is to stand up and say children were obviously hurt during during Epstein's time on Earth, right? With the help of people like Les Wexner and a lot of others allegedly, right? So that being said, that should be enough for any university, and that includes the other state, to disassociate themselves with somebody like Les Wexner. That's all I'm saying. Shout out to my guy Jason. Jason, what's good, man?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's good?
I don't think the name is going to get changed. I think it's a long process. I know that if you donate to the university, someone in a statement, because a lot of people in Ohio, they want them to get rid of the name. If you go towards but his name is like everywhere on the campus, like new hospital. It's a very, very nice hospital. He built like a new center, like Wexner Center for Arts, for like people that are into like performing arts. If you go to the football facility, his name is on the field. So his name is like everywhere, but obviously with everything that came out allegedly, people want his name gone. But
Right.
it's a long process. And I don't know if you've seen Johnny's video. He talked about it, and a lot of people talk about it in Ohio. The president has the power to change the name, but it's up to the board of trustees. And although he donated as much money as he had to the university, if they take away his stuff, he's probably not going to donate in the future. And
Yeah.
morality wise, that would probably be best, I guess. But like in the future, you're looking at, okay, you're changing everything up. So Ohio State runs risk of like, okay, who's going to be that next donor? And it seems like they're kind of choosing the money over morals. And obviously, I love my alma mater, and that's the decision that they're going to have to live with. And
Yeah.
I understand both sides of the argument, because you're going off of something that's still in a process that's ongoing, off of along things. But it's very difficult to tell a university we're going to get rid of a billionaire. I understand both sides of it, but I understand like why they're not doing it. And like Johnny pointed out, even if the president, it seems like I know Johnny pointed out how like he kind of sees like the board of trustees is kind of like a bad apples, and the president is good. At some point, he's going to, as the president, you're going to have to make a stand on where you fall on this, because there's a lot of people in Ohio that feels like they should get rid of it. And even though the hospital's nice and the buildings that he builds nice, where do you fall? And I just don't think they have decided to make that decision yet. And I don't know when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, but it's a tough decision, and I understand both sides of the argument.
Let me so Jason, thank you for calling up too. Obviously, Jason went to Ohio State. He's a Ohio State fan. He's more closely connected to the university than most of us here, being Michigan fans. That said, and shout out to you for again, coming up here on the Michigan channel. That said, let's talk about this, Jason, because I know it is a difference between the moral side and then obviously financially. The thing is, without Wexner, sure, would Ohio State take a hit? To some degree, absolutely. But also, you have to know, like, that's still a very rich university, right? their endowment every year and things like that, things that they can lean on, they'll be okay in terms of the university, right? Maybe, certain projects, i.e. sports and things like that, might be affected a little more than the actual scholastic university, because that's not going to really be affected too much by losing somebody like Wexner. In fact, there are arguments to be had on them actually gaining by losing somebody like Wexner. But where I don't think that there should be any question, in my opinion. Now, granted, I am a fan of Ohio State's biggest rival, right? So I get that there may be some bias in there. But at the same time, I'm also a father, bro. I got daughters, and if I know that if my daughters were, you know, taken advantage of, let's just say, I don't want to say words out here, but taken advantage of by people like Epstein and others, I probably wouldn't be on alive, number one, but also I wouldn't give a shit about that university's money and how they're going to be affected. For all intents and purposes, fuck y'all and fuck him too, right? Because and I'm talking about if they refuse to, and their refusal of like removing his name and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
it's bigger than that. Listen, Jason, really quick, and I'll give you back the floor. And you talk about going through due process, and I'm a person that believes due process is necessary. I absolutely believe that, right? And right now, Wexner hasn't been convicted of anything, whatever, right? However, we saw what happened at Michigan State with what's my man, the coach,
Mel Tucker.
Mel Tucker. We saw, right, Mel coming. We saw what happened with Mel Tucker. He was convicted in the court of public opinion far before any facts came out, right? And now it looks like he's going to be able to, at least he has a foot in his claim of trying to get his money back, because it looks like that lady, you know, took advantage of a situation, right? The text messages have come out. A friend of hers has testified, or at least allegedly, that she spoke with her about, if he doesn't want to help me, or if he's not going to give me money, I'm going to get it some way, right? And whether it be, throwing him under the bus for uh, SA or whatever it was that, she claimed. Let's even take it a step further. He was fired, by the way. That's what the point is. He was fired. Michigan State moved away from him and any of his likeness immediately, just off the claim, basically, right? Fired with cause. He didn't get none of that $100 million or whatever it was that he signed for, 90 million, whatever it was. Then you take it, a couple years later, you got our situation with Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore was fired, right? And then that smear, and let me not call it a smear campaign, because he smeared his own damn name. But whatever happened with him and that girl, and now it looks like when the facts come out, discovery is had, right? That it looks like that her lawyer made false claims, right, about Sharon Moore and his involvement with her, at least the degree of his involvement with her, especially on that day. So that looks like, some of that could be different. I don't even care, though. That's the point, though, is I don't care about whether or not Mel Tucker gets some, financial gain and is able to, clear his name in a way that he gets that money, or even Sharon is able to clear his name in a way that he has to pay this lady less money, because I'm sure she's going to sue his ass. That said, or at least that was the plan, I believe. That said, it was important for those universities to distance themselves from those individuals immediately, right? And in no way be connected to them. And in this situation, this is a guy who, if it's not for his name on buildings around that campus and things like that, most people wouldn't even know existed, right? A lot of these billionaires live anonymous lives. We wouldn't even know this person existed. So taking his name off a building would be far less detrimental in terms of in the public eye than it is to lose, head coaches in the public eye because of, their personal lives, basically. Like, I think that that's crazy. I think it's crazy that, we fully were on board and accepted, and hell, even champion, fired him. because this is crazy, right? And especially in the case of Sharon Moore, like, you know, the malfeasance looks like it's seeping onto the field. And I guess an argument can be made for Mel Tucker too. But in the case of Les Wexner, who is not a coach or any of these things, just pays some money to have his name on buildings around your campus. And don't get me wrong, he's donated to other things, especially medically. But he losing his name off of these buildings or whatever is far less detrimental, in my opinion, except for obviously financially. What do you say to that, Jason?
I'd say that this is not the same situation. You're looking at both of those people were employed by the university. So Mel Tucker and Sharon Moore were employed. We don't employ him. He donates to the university. And also, like the spokesperson for Ohio State said that with this going on, Ohio State, they wouldn't be entitled to give any of the money back that he donated. Right. So all the buildings and stuff that he built and all that, they don't have to give none of it back. This is strictly, it looks like, for the future. And again, I understand your point about like public perception. And yes, they're taking a hit. The university's taking a hit. Like students, alums, people that are just Ohioans, they don't want to go there. People that obviously it's a great hospital, but people are choosing to go to other hospitals in Ohio because of the situation that happened. Again, we don't know the full extent. Again, I'm gonna just keep saying allegedly because I don't know everything that happened. But they're looking at long term down the line, looking at their budgets or whatever they're trying to balance, saying like if we bring in or they're probably projecting out like if we can continue to get a certain amount of money coming from him, we can use the other funds to go into other places. Again, this is a money thing. And then when Sharon Moore and Mel Tucker, again, they're hired and they're representing the university. The football coach is the highest paid. Even here, the football coach is the highest paid person at the university in most instances. And yes, bad look. Les Wexner, not the highest paid employee for Ohio State, so they can't just kick him to the curb. You look at, a lot of, fans of your place, they bring up how there was assistant professor at our school on camera, videotape, doing something to somebody else filming. What did the university do? They immediately suspended him because he works for them. They can't just suspend Les Wexner. And again, his name is on a lot of buildings, and I'm not defending him, but again, the spokesperson said, like, for them to even take his name down, it's a long process. So, like, I get to the point where Johnny brought out about how there's good apples and bad apples, and, the president has a decision to make. That's ultimately on him and his morals, really. But there's nothing that we could do. All you can do as like a Ohioan or a citizen is just protest, like, hey, give your opinion. It's up to the university to choose who's in charge, like how moral are they or are they not moral. And it just seems like they've chosen a certain path versus like Sharon Moore, employed by the university, the professor at OSU, employed by the university, and decisions that they did allegedly or is on camera or not impacts the university, why they have to make a decision quicker versus someone who's a bit of a great donor, I guess, versus someone that's, because Sharon Moore and Mel Tucker, they brought in a lot of money for the university too, but it was the football team, not just him as the head coach versus someone who's directly donating in a large mass at a large time. But I understand where you're coming from.
Right. So, and I understand what you're saying, right? These people were employed by the university. It's the university is almost compelled to do what they did with those two, right? Which I'm not arguing against. However, because this guy isn't an employee of Ohio State, it should be that much easier to distance yourself if you're Ohio State. And I'm not, let's just, throw in any university that you want to name here, like anybody that has a big time donor that isn't necessarily employed by that university or whatever, and then is involved in some sort of scandal like this is very scandalous, then I think it's very easy to say, hey, we don't want any parts of this. Now, granted, what you said is true too, right? Like, they are weighing the pros and cons here. Obviously, the biggest con is losing Les Wexner and his money, right? But again, for a university like the other state, is losing Les Wexner's money that damning for your university?
Again, it's a moral conversation that you have to have. And again, if your name is first of all, to get your name even on a building at Ohio State, you have to pay a lot of money, and it's a long process. We have literally a naming committee. So even if they say, okay, we're going to take his name off of buildings. It's a long process. That's up to the naming committee. And it seems that they have not made an attempt to even begin that process.
Mm-hmm.
And the court, like you talk about with Jerome Moore or the professor at my alma mater, public perception and opinion, they want immediate reactions. This is something that you already know is not going to be an immediate reaction. They can't just put somebody on leave or fire somebody this because he doesn't work for the university. I get what you're saying, but you know how this works. We know what the cost is to be competitive, what the cost is to continue to have a university that thrives in all areas, not just on the specific athletics, but on the field. But overall, and they're choosing, we will take this public hit right now, but we will still take the money. And as long as Ohio State is being able to use that money wherever they want to use it, that's a risk that seem like they're willing to take. And obviously, we've been in a lot of scandals, so this isn't like this is the first one. And I feel like this is just another one of those hits that Ohio State is potentially going to take. But it seems like they're willing to take it. And again, he doesn't work for the university.
Let's talk some facts real quick. All right. This is the process, and this is specifically for Ohio State. This is the process for adding a name to a building, to a university building, and it's as follows. A formal process requiring approval from the Board of Trustees, often linked to significant philanthropic contributions, money. Proposal must align with university values and undergo review by administration, ensuring the naming reflects the institution's reputation for excellence and final authority resting with the board. Okay, that's if you want to get a name on a building at Ohio State, right? The process to remove a name at Ohio State. Removing a building name at Ohio State involves a formal review process requiring substantial evidence of misconduct or reputational harm managed by a naming review committee, followed by recommendations to the provost president, final approval by the board of trustees. The process emphasizes maintaining institutional integrity over donor agreements. So, by the way, the process to remove a name from a building sounds much more to do than to add one, by the way. But also, there were words like integrity used in there. There are words like, aligning with university values and ensuring that naming represents or reflects the institution's reputation of excellence and things like that. And we're talking about a guy who is accused really of funding Epstein's entire operation, as well as providing doctors to, further his criminal organization, if you will. And that can't align with any university's, values, if you will, right?
Correct.
I think that makes it the process that much easier, in my personal opinion. This seems very black and white after reading both of these processes.
That is definitely true. But when you talk about the board of trustees, their meeting notes are public, and it seems like they have not want to discuss that. Again,
Mhm.
we are weighing the future versus right now. And again, you're not wrong, and everyone is not wrong to say that it should be removed. And I have no issue with that stance. But I'm just telling you, they're probably not going to remove it unless they are really literally forced to remove it. And they obviously, with all the information allegedly that's came out, it should be, like you said, very clear. But again, look at what they're weighing down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, let me ask you this. You are closer to the program, to the university, than most other people that are on this Michigan podcast. What do you think would be the fallout if they did remove his name, if they did stop receiving, funds from Wexner and his ALIKes or whatever? What would be the fallout from that?
The fallout will be financial ramifications, because he is one of the bigger donors down my alma mater scenes. Me being a donor, my money's nowhere near, what he's donating. So the fallout will be immense because you're looking at his name is he's not just tied to academics, but also athletics as well as healthcare. You're going to have to figure out how are you going to be able to continue to thrive without that big donation. When you look at universities, they're able to project years in advance. That projections, they're going to a lot of things are going to change. They might have to raise ticket prices or raise a lot of things around the university. And then you're talking about, is that what the public wants? And for everyone that's calling for it, we have to be able to understand that everything is going to change in terms of pricing and everything else once we remove someone as such a big donor, because you can't no longer rely on that contribution. But also morality, like you said, you have daughters. I think if your daughter was to go to OSU one day, I think you would feel a lot more comfortable knowing that this university is taking the right steps, no matter what the cost is. And money isn't the end all be all. Morals are what it should be, and they do remove it. That's what you'll see. So we'll let the process play out. Thank you for letting me join us today.
No problem, man.
I
Thank
feel like
you.
you guys had a lot of great comments, and I like the perspective that you guys added.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to Jason, man, for even coming up, sharing his thoughts on the situation. We all know, and as Michigan fans, what we think is right, what we think we would do. Obviously, the people in position to make the change at Ohio State feel the way they feel, and haven't been presented with enough information, I suppose, to remove somebody like Les Wexner from, their building signage. It is what it is. It's crazy. Shout out to Johnny. He said OSU need Jason to speak for the university. Well said. Absolutely. 1000%. Shout out to Tree. He says, of course it does, but this is a football podcast. Maybe I'm jumping into a conversation I don't know yet. Anyway, let's move on. We will follow the Les Wexner story. If it's more information to bring to you, we'll bring it to you. But a big basketball game took place yesterday. Number 1 Michigan, number 3 Duke, neutral site, Washington D.C., Capital One Arena. Michigan, of course, loses that game to Duke. I don't know about y'all, but I'm upset. I was really hoping that Michigan could get that one. I don't think it is as, obviously you want to win every game. Michigan had only lost 1 game coming into that one. I believe Duke had only lost 2 games coming into that one. So it was really a battle of titans, if you will. But Michigan came up short. It seems like Michigan comes up short against that university a lot at basketball, and I don't like it. I'm not here for it. It's a disgusting program too. Shout out to them. 63-68 final score. Lindenberg came to play, especially first half, man. 16 points in the first half, I believe. He was on fire. He was dominating. Carlos Boozer, though, or not Carlos Boozer, his son, Cam Boozer, I believe is his name, right? Cameron Boozer closed the game. All right. And it's a difference between starting and finishing. And Boozer finished while Lindenberg kind of fell off in the second half. By the way, speaking of falling off, my guy, the point guard from North Carolina, the transfer, Cadeau, couldn't hit the ocean from the beach. I believe he hit 1 3-pointer late in that game after he blew a wide open layup. It just was not Michigan's day, not their night last night. What do you guys think about it? I got the link in the chat. Anybody want to come up and talk about it, feel free, come up and talk about it. Corey G says Michigan is bigger and stronger, but let Duke push them around. That's a fact. I know Mara got into some foul trouble early. He sat out for most of the first half. Jason says y'all got that Boozer belt, whatever. Also, Boozer got away with a foul that would have fouled him out of the game before he went on a personal 7-0 run. And that needs to be talked about. He clearly hit Montez in the head and was not called for it. But, you know, I guess they can't call them all. But it's also interesting to note that one of the referees that was involved in last night's game is 13. Duke is 13-0 when he refs their games. I want that to be known. That's kind of crazy. All right. Now, granted, Duke is a very good basketball program. They're probably better than most of the teams that they play anyway. So 13-0, if you're playing, you know, the Citadel or whatever, and I'm not saying that that's who they were playing, but it really doesn't matter who they were playing. They're probably better than them in most cases. But still, 13-0 under this ref is still kind of crazy in my personal opinion. Shout out to Bushido Brown. That was not goaltending. I know exactly what you're talking about. The Mara block was not goaltending. That thing was still going up. And they didn't even really look at it, bro. They went over there. They gave it one glance and was like, yo, it's goaltending. And they came back and kept it as goaltending. That made it a 3-point game. If that block is allowed to stand, it's a 1-point game with Michigan having some momentum. That kind of changed the whole thing for us at the end. Being for real, Michigan deserves to lose that game. I'm not mad at that. I think they did too. The refs were terrible. Yeah, that is also true. Referees did not help Michigan in any way last night. But again, I think Lindenberg and his start was phenomenal. Cadeau just not being able to hit the broadside of a barn was not great. Kaysen, bro, listen, come to the front of the line, LJ Kaysen. You tried to play one-on-one basketball far too much last night. I know you're a good talent, good player, but bro, reel it in. He tried to go one-on-one far too much last night. One of those times the center for Duke ripped him. It was very, very embarrassing. Stop doing it. All right. Play basketball. What do you guys think Michigan ends up in the next AP poll? Where do you think Duke ends up? Also, number 2, Arizona beat number 4, Houston. So it was a real bunch of potential Final Four matchups last night. So Arizona probably moves up to 1. Duke will probably be number 2. Where do you think Michigan falls? Does Houston fall far? By the way, Arizona was 4 and Houston was number 2. I think I had those mixed up there, but yeah. So Arizona will probably be number 2 then, and Duke will be number 1. Corey G says they probably needed to lose to regroup, get focused again, tear through the rest of the season. Yeah, I mean, sometimes a loss is good to help teams refocus. So I can see that being a positive for Michigan down the line. We'll see though. That said, look, I wasn't here for a long time. I was here for a good time. Shout out to my guy JG King. Hit the like button. If you haven't already, share this with your friends and family on social media. We will be back tomorrow evening, by the way. Myself, the Maniac, Lynch Max, Old Man on the Sticks will not be joining us for a few weeks still. He's still in class. Wish him the best. That said, till next time, you know the slogan, stay angry, my friends. I'm up.
Ladies and gentlemen, this might be our best season ever. My ratings, they're about to go through the roof.
All right, now I'ma calm down. So I just don't get that all that maze and that lock and all that. I just don't get it. So and how the
Oh my God, we're shutting the damn live down. Good night, everybody.